Our peppers stayed out for the first time all night last night. They're looking pretty good. This is a part of the hardening off process. It's a must when you are starting your own seeds. Good morning, friends. Welcome back to my channel. I am Adrienne, and you are here with our dream of simple living. So this morning, I wanted to talk about something that is, I guess, can be very controversial with a lot of people, and can be very frustrating to a gardener, beginner gardener. People have a lot of opinions about this particular thing, and so let's chat about it for a minute. All right, so as you begin to garden, especially in the springtime, the summertime, even sometimes in early fall, you will undoubtedly deal with pest pressure. This year, you guys know in my last video, I talked about just giving myself grace and just kind of dealing with things and whatever and not getting stressed about things. I have just kind of decided to watch what's going on in my garden. Undoubtedly, every single year since we've been on this property, we have dealt with something eating our green beans, whether it has been Japanese beetles, flea beetles, I really don't know. This year, I'll say again that I feel like it's the culprit has been, what are the things? Jeez. Grasshoppers. However, yesterday we were out here and I saw a few slugs. So I'm kind of thinking that it could be slugs as well. But I really don't know, because it seems to be that whatever is chomping on them, it chomps on them at night. All right, so just to kind of show you what I'm talking about, if you look at this plant, it literally looks like something has eaten it. If you look at those plants, those are bean plants, even though they're bigger, something has eaten them. If you look at the leaf back here, that leaf looks like a different kind of pest. So I've been watching it. Some of the beans are fine, but then by the morning they'll be chomped on. And then some of the kale that I planted by seed has been chomped on. Now, this won't be a big deal if the beans are still able to produce, but if they have no foliage, they won't produce well. So this is kind of what we're dealing with. Really? That's what you're gonna do in the video? Okay. Now, as you can see here, you're looking at some of my kales and collards. These have not really been bothered until this week. And so what I am planning to do with these is, because they're big enough, I'll go ahead and harvest these, freeze them up, or honestly, we've been eating on these every single day. So for these, I'm not really worried, because I know that this is not enough for me to just be really, really concerned about, because I can easily just pull these, freeze them, eat them in stir fries, salads, or whatever. So not really too concerned about those. So that's what we'll do with them. Now, honestly, it's just par for the course. It's, you know, a decision you have to make, whether you are going to garden organically or whether you decide that it's, you know, okay for you to use sprays or dust or pesticides. It's funny because I've talked to so many older gardeners who swear by seven dust. They're like, yeah, that's the only way I'm able to garden. I got tired of dealing with the pests, blah, blah, blah. So, what do I plan to do? Now, when it comes to crops like my beans, because as you know, beans are basically grown in the summertime. So they're not necessarily a spring crop, they're a summer crop. You do plant them in the spring. But what I plan to do with those is just honestly succession sow. I have basically plugged beans into so many different areas in this garden. Um, and so I'm just going to keep planting them. Now, I don't know what will happen in the future. Um, I will tell you guys this: when we first got our soil, we had a massive ant problem in our soil. And I called our local extension office and they recommended some stuff to me that's, safe. But that's stuff that we put on before we planted anything. Now, I know that I may get flack for that. You do you, boo. But I'm telling you what we ended up doing, because there were mounds and mounds and mounds and mounds of ants. We actually saw some termite larvae in our soil. And so we had to kind of handle that. But as far as spraying on my crops, I am not going to be spraying on my crops at this point. It's not so big of an issue that I'm just like, I've got to do something. So, but I don't know what may happen in the future. And honestly, when I say putting anything on them, I'm not talking about seven dust or, the major. I'm talking natural as possible. Now, I know that some people say there's nothing that's natural if you put it on them, that's not organic if you put anything on them. Well, again, everybody's garden is their garden. You do what works for you. If you have a massive problem in your garden, whatever you decide is worth it for you to figure out what's going on and for you to have a harvest for your family, then do what's best for you. But, for me, I enjoy being able to come out to my garden, pick a pea or pick a leaf and just eat it. So I don't want to worry about having to come out here and, oh my gosh, did I spray that? So again, one of my biggest plans for the summer or this garden is to just keep succession sowing. I have tons of beans that I can sow. I have sown so many beans, like I said, in all of these beds. And I'm kind of looking around to see if any of them have really come up, and I'm seeing a bunch of them come up. But it is disappointing, y'all. I'm not going to say that it's not. When you come out here and you literally, the day before, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a great harvest of whatever it is that you're planning for, and then this happens. Listen, I have been waiting on this Swiss chard to come up for so long, this spinach to come up for so long, and can you see what is happening? It is frustrating. It is beyond, like, ugh. However, I am not going to worry too much about it, and I'll tell you why. So one of the reasons that I'm not going to worry a lot about, especially my spring crops, spinach, chard, all the spring things, is because, again, I prefer to plant my cool weather crops in the fall garden. So a lot of the things that I have in my garden right now that are spring, they're just here to get whatever harvest I can get. I know full well that those things can be grown again in the fall. So if you ask me what my plan is again to succession sow. There may be some times that I have to come out here and pull off caterpillars or whatever. But I don't plan to put pesticides in my garden. I am just doing what I can to keep everything alive. And I'm going to just keep succession sowing. Those beans that are getting eaten up, I am praying that I can get a harvest, because again, in years past, they've gotten eaten so bad that I haven't really. And honestly, I think what it is last year, I didn't understand the importance of succession sowing. So everything in my garden this year, I've basically succession sown. My tomatoes, my front rows of tomatoes here in these first two L-shaped beds were planted first. And then this week we came out and we planted more tomatoes here. And then a few days later, we planted more tomatoes. And in that back bed, we've done the same. So nothing in my garden has been planted at the same time, whether it be carrots, whether it be beans, whether it be onions. Every single thing in this garden has been succession sowed. Now, it's kind of time out for me to keep planting spinach and radishes and all those things. But as much as I can, I'm going to just keep sowing things. I have plenty of seeds that I need to get rid of because a lot of my seeds are old. However, some of them are newer, but I need to get rid of these seeds. So that's what we're going to do, friends. You choose to do what's best for your garden. If you are a beginner, you're going to hear so much about organic gardening. Some people feel like things like neem oil is organic. Some people feel like diatomaceous earth is organic. And yes, I will be honest. When it gets really bad in my garden, I will resort to things like neem oil. I've actually used peppermint oil in my garden. I have used diatomaceous earth in my garden. Some people feel like that's a terrible thing to do. Me personally, I'd rather use that than some of the commercial things like Seven Dust in my garden. And I keep saying Seven Dust just because that's one of the ones that most people like at farmers markets have told me, girl, get you some Seven Dust. But you do what makes you comfortable. You do what you feel is best for your family. I personally would rather, again, be able to come out and pull a leaf and just eat it and know that I do not have pesticides on it. However, I don't know what it's going to be like when it gets really hot out here. You know, one of the things that I struggle with the most in my garden, which is something that I'm going back and forth on literally every single day, is squash bugs. We don't eat enough squash or zucchini in our family for me to really justify fighting the battle with squash bugs. However, I enjoy squash and I enjoy zucchini. And so it may be worth it for me to plant out a few and just maybe net them and just watch them until they, there's no more, or I get a few harvests off of them. I know that with squash and zucchini, I'm not looking to be able to harvest enough to where I can basically save up enough or preserve enough. So, you kind of have to choose your battles. Green beans, some people don't care about green beans. Me personally, I love green beans, and I find myself buying green beans just about every week because we eat them that much. So to keep succession sowing them, it's worth it for me. To spray them, probably not, because I know that I can get them. However, garden fresh goodies are just so much better than store-bought goodies. All right, so yesterday we came out here, and you guys, I've told you, if you watched my last video, I talked about this lone pea plant that's here, and we do have a bean here. Yeah, let me show you, or a pea pod here. I'm gonna save that for my girls. I always try to let them have the first pea because they love it so much. So I'm looking at my tomato plants, y'all, and this tomato plant, or these tomato plants, are so close to being ready to be trellised. Now, I came out here yesterday and I clipped a few of the bottom leaves. I try really hard because we're kind of in a humid climate like right now. It's kind of humid. I try not to trim off a lot of the leaves when it's really humid, because those little scabs at the bottom, basically from where you trim them off, and I'll show you guys, that could cause disease if it gets too much, moisture in them. And so I try not to do a lot of trimming when the weather is like that, but those leaves were hitting the ground and they were starting to look bad. So I thought it was worth it to go ahead and trim them. So when I talk about the scabs, I'm talking about like here, because it's just an open, kind of like an open cut, right? So these are looking pretty good. Now I am watching because I did plant some dill. Y'all, I can never get dill to work for me. So I don't know what's gonna happen, but we'll see. But as you can see back here, I planted a whole bunch of beans back here because, again, this is just an open spot in my garden and I want to get as many beans as I possibly can. And that's another thing. Beans are one of those plants that don't need a ton of space, and you can basically pop them in wherever you see open space in your garden to try to get the best, harvest from them. And that's one of the things that I never really did. I never really planted a ton. I would always plant like a couple of square feet. Like, you can't feed a family off of a couple of square feet of beans. Like, come on, y'all. It takes a bunch. When I started seeing people like Rachel from that 1870s homestead planting like 400, maybe it wasn't 400, 200, 300, whatever, bean plants, I was like, girl, what are you doing? She always talks about how it's just her and Todd, and a lot of times they'll have things for the family, but for the most part it's for her and Todd, and she's planting that many and I'm only planting a couple of square feet. Like, what am I thinking? Like, yeah, no, didn't work. All right, so another thing that has really, really bothered me, y'all, I love bok choy. That is probably one of my favorite greens. I never really had a love for it until I started gardening. I am telling you, garden fresh goodies just taste different. And so as many times as I would eat these in like Asian dishes, I never really had a love for it until we started growing it. But it took forever for it to really just come up. And look at this, friends. I came out yesterday morning, they were looking great. And now this morning they are chomped on. I could get frustrated, or I can just hope and pray that they continue to grow up kind of like that and just wait for fall to plant more. Look at the bugs. Where's that bug? I just saw one somewhere, y'all. Bug hunting. On another note, look at the peas. Friends, we have literally been out here like, why are peas doing nothing? Because, you hear about peas and how easy they are to grow. We are just now getting flowers. Now, I will be honest and tell you, we have battled aphids so incredibly bad in this pea, on this pea wall. And so we have done, the jet set on our water. We've done dish detergent. And we seem to kind of get them down, but we still have to watch them like every day, basically. So hopefully all of those flowers will turn into garden fresh goodies. Look at those collards. These have not been eaten up. Fingers crossed. We don't know. Oh, yeah. Hopefully they work out. So we did come out and put up another cattle panel. And we have our tomatoes. I've never put in my tomatoes this way, so I hope that this works out this year. We do have them 18 inches apart either way, so from like that tomato to that tomato is 18 inches in the same way, and going across they're 18 inches. So hopefully this works out. I know that this means I'm gonna have to prune a lot, so I'm ready for the challenge. And of course we still have paste tomatoes over here. I do need to get more paste tomatoes. This trellis, me and my girls were putting this up. Well, actually me and my husband were putting this up at, like, it was turning dark. And it is bothering me this morning because it's angled a little bit. So we're gonna have to come out here and fix that because I'm not gonna be able to deal with this being off kilter. So yeah. So again, another spot where we have planted beans all the way down this bed, and they are starting to come up. So really happy to see that. What we will most likely do is the bed right next to it, behind these tomatoes, in front of the cucumbers, we'll come out and put some more beans. Now I do think my daughter put some beets out here. We'll thin those out, but I don't know that the beets will have time to do anything. Even if it's just for the beet greens, I'll take it, because I'm not a beet eater, but I do want the beet greens just for nutritional value, medicinal type value, health value. So, all right, cucumbers, they have all come up. I will be planting more cucumbers, but again, that is a part of that succession sowing. So I planted some this week, and then we'll be planting more probably next week. I don't know. But what my plan is to go ahead and have these going, and then as the peas are coming out, I'll go ahead and put some cucumbers along this trellis. But then we also have peas over here that I've got to trellis up. I didn't think that these were gonna come up, but these are like my shelling peas. So we're just gonna see what happens with them. Who knows? My daughter threw them in the ground and they're looking pretty good. So we're gonna see what happens. All right, so the sun is coming out, so I'm gonna cut this kind of short, but potatoes are still looking good. We did come through yesterday, and I saw some kind of peeking through the soil, and so I buried those down. So I'm gonna be watching that a lot more now to make sure that, you know, because that one was kind of green, so I don't know that we'll be able to do anything with it, but definitely something to watch. And then we also put tomatoes back here on this back wall, so we've just got to get our cattle panel up. And what I'm planning to do, we didn't put them so far on the wall because we're going to put that cattle panel in between them in the middle, and then we're going to be planting beans or something around the edges. So definitely giving us a lot, you know, space to be able to plug in some things. This 10-foot, I'm planning to put more paste tomatoes. So hopefully I'm able to get that in there. But whatever we do, we need to go ahead and get some things planted. These are a couple of Roma tomatoes, so we'll just kind of go through and do that. My beans, or not my beans, but I am looking at my potatoes. Goodness gracious. And I am seeing some more pest pressure. I do have some more potatoes that I think I may come out and put in these bare spots, or I may just put beans. I've heard about interplanting beans and potatoes, so we'll see. So thankful for this garden, y'all. All right, so that's gonna be it, guys. I hope that this video helped you. I hope that this video kind of encouraged you to just think about your own garden and what it is that your goals are in your garden. My goals may not be your goals. It is getting quite hot out here. It's supposed to rain this morning, so I thought that this would be a good time to come out, but it is warm, so we're gonna go ahead and head inside. I'm excited for the growth in the garden this year. Again, I'm just focusing on what's working, and also thinking about what's not working. Another thing that I have not mentioned is that this, or I think I've mentioned, this is a brand new garden space. Something bit me. Sorry, y'all. And so all of this soil is brand new. We had this brought in, you know, big bulk of soil. And so honestly, when your soil is brand new, a lot of times you don't get a good, you know, it takes a couple of years to really amend it and get things going. So there are some spots where I know that I'm going to need to amend the soil. However, I have already started to amend it. We had it long enough for me to start putting some amendments down. So whatever we get, I'm happy about, and I'm grateful, and I am thankful that this garden, and I've prayed over this garden, we are going to have an abundance here, y'all. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that this was helpful. If it was, go ahead and consider subscribing and give this a thumbs up. I will talk to you guys soon. Bye, friends. And of course, our garden buddy is being lazy this morning. It's too early for him. Hey, baby. Are you ready to go in? Are you guarding the peppers? Are you? Look at that tail wagging. Let's go, Bubba. Let's go. Are you ready? Hey, you gotta say hey to the people. Say hey to the people. Oh, beautiful. Bye, y'all.